So last week we spoke about Reb Meir. That Reb Meir, B'Rev Chochmasoi, he could identify any process in reality and take it back to its root cause and recognize why it is good, why it needs to be that way. And therefore he could say, Al Tomei Torah. He could say on something that other people say that it's Tomei, he could say that it's Torah. He could make a difference in how we perceive that reality. So the second thing Chazal say about Reb Meir is that Reb Meir could also say Al Torah Tomei. He could say on something that's Torah, he can dig down into the depth of it and recognize how it's Tomei. But how is that a good thing? Isn't that the opposite direction of where we want to go? Isn't wisdom here in order to bring everything back to Kedusha, back to good? So Reb Tzodok is going to explain. Ratzon loymar, ki yadu ma she'omri Yetzira doimel lizvuv. He's like a fly. V'yoshev al shnei miftachei alev. He sits at the two openings of the heart. So the Yetzira, he's the one that wants to get in your way of manifesting your reality. He's the one that wants to get in your way of your nature becoming a real self, so that you can attach yourself to your real being and you can actually manifest your nature so that you can be what HaKadosh Baruch Hu intended you to be. So how does he do that? He sits at the two doorways of the heart. Because the heart has a yamin and it has a smoil. Like the pasuk says, Ki lev chocham liyaminoi v'lev ksil lismoiloi. V'hu yoshev al shneim lemer al yamin shi smol v'al smol shi yamin. V'omer al Torah tomeh. So the Yetzirah's job really is to say that something that seems good, he's going to make it look bad. Why does he do that? Because that's the easiest way for him to stop somebody from actually manifesting. When you say Al Torah Tomei, when you take away the good manifestations from a person, when you don't allow a person to be the good version of themselves, the only thing they have left to do is to be the bad version of themselves, by default. So the Yetzirah loves doing that. That's why it's called a Satan. A Satan means somebody who gets in your way, like with the story of Bilam, when he's going, and the Malach comes l'Satan, it comes to block his way. So the easiest way to block a person from being themselves is to confuse them about what's good and what's bad. And this happens to all of us. There's not a single person that actually sees reality the way that it is. All of us have things that we think are bad, but they're really good. Not only do we have things that are good that we think is bad, that's easy to identify. People try to work on that so that they know everything that's bad is bad. But there are many things that we think are bad, but they're not bad. And because it's within our nature that we need that thing, because it's good for us, and therefore we need it, when we block ourselves from having it, when we don't allow ourselves to go there, we're causing damage to our inner self. We're causing damage to our nature. And then eventually we're going to look for things that are really bad in order to compensate for that thing that is really good that we can't have because we think it's bad. So that's one of the ways of how the Yetzirah twists our experience, and it makes us look much worse than we are. And in today's generation, this goes to the extreme, where people feel like they're the worst people in the world, and the reality is that they've done nothing wrong whatsoever. In fact, all they've ever done is try to find the truth, which is as right as you can be. But because of how society looks at the truth, and because of the little resources we have available to us and to our wisdom, so that we can really identify what's true and what's not true, and what has a purpose and what doesn't, and what's good and what's bad, so we end up judging ourselves to be bad. And that's the biggest Al Torah Tomei that the Yetzirah does. He takes the Torah that lives inside of you, your spirit, your pure Chelek Elokam Emal, your Nefesh, and he convinces you that it's Tomei. He convinces you that there's something wrong with it, that it doesn't want things that it should be wanting, it doesn't do things that it should be doing, when in reality it could very well be that there's nothing wrong with you. And for the most part, there's nothing wrong with you. The little that's wrong with you is the information and the way that we use it. So it's one of the ways of how he confuses us. So saying, Reb Meir was able to see that even this, that you allowed your Satan to convince you that you are Tomei, which is the worst thing in the world that you can do. It's like a machnis tzelem beheichel, where he takes a divine being and he says that there's Tomei, he says that this is bad, this is wrong. Reb Meir Beroif Chochmosei went so deep that he could even explain to you why you did this, and even this was good for you. Why even this had a purpose. That when you said Al Torah Tomei, even that was supposed to be that way in order for you to gain access to a certain reality that you wouldn't have had without this. So that was the koich of Reb Meir. So when he speaks about the Yetzirah sitting in the left and the right, what does that mean? And we see that expression in the Torah many times. Don't go right and don't go left. What does that mean? Where is right and where is left? So as a general klal in the Torah, Yamin, tzad chesed. Yamin is tzad of ahava, tzad of love, tzad of acceptance, tzad of openness and no restriction. Small is the midas hadin. Small is the one that has rules and tries to define what's good and what's not good, what's real and what's not real, what's allowed and what's not allowed. That's always small. So the Yetzirah, he doesn't just take the tzad yamin, and he doesn't just take the tzad small. He sits on both sides, meaning wherever you want to go, whether you want to think now in forms of love or you want to think in forms of restriction, in both of those situations, the Yetzirah is going to get involved in that conversation. In the tzad yamin, on the right side, on the tzad chesed, when you want to be open, the Yetzirah will try to convince you that you should be closed. This is no good, like we just said, al Torah tomei. And al tzad small, when you recognize already that a certain area is not good for you, the Yetzirah will come and say, how do you know it's not good for you? Maybe it's okay. And that's because we have a disconnect between ourselves, the way that we really are, and ourselves, the way that we think we are. And our nature, the way that it really is a davar kodesh, is a davar tor. It comes into this world pure. It's tor. But then because we are not equipped to understand it, because we don't really have access to understanding it, this allows for us to make a mistake where we can say on things that are good that they're bad, and on things that are bad that are good. And the way out, the way to leave this darkness where the Satan confuses you and you don't recognize your own reality, is through accepting the yichud, like we've discussed before. That Reb Meir, he didn't see any evil in this world. Because if the one that created it is good, is kind, it must be that everything that he created is good and kind. So why do we experience it as anything less? It's because we're not interpreting it correctly. And therefore, even our wrong interpretations, Reb Meir would bring back a way to explain to you why you had to interpret it wrong. Even that, he had a way of being mali. Even that, he had a way of finding good in it. And he's going to explain a little bit how Reb Meir goes about doing this. So he says, "V'dover zeh omak b'chochma." This is a very deep level of wisdom. Shegam l'archokas dover toiv yeh tikun. That somebody should be able to be misaken the fact that he puzzled something good. Shegam zeh nisken l'mafrei sheikain af shi tor be'emes. So even though it's really Torah, Reb Meir will understand why reality caused you to think that it's Tomei for the while that it caused you to think so, and how that brought purification, how that brought something real that you needed access to. So mitzad madregosa yochel levareg gam hazeh lesakne l'mafrei. V'zeh she'amru. Go le'il v'yadiya lifnei mi she'omar v'hoya oilam. So the Chazal say over there, Go le'il v'yadiya lifnei mi she'omar v'hoya oilam, that Reb Meir is deeper than all the rest of his friends. So why don't we always paskin like Reb Meir? Because Le'amdi Chachom al Saf Date, Chachom couldn't understand this depth of Reb Meir. Reb Meir was so deep, and he could explain everything to the good, that the Chachomim couldn't keep up with him. And because the Chachomim couldn't keep up with him, they couldn't paskin like that. So he says, who is this? When Chazal say an expression, to us, we're used to referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in so many different words and so many different names that we don't distinguish. But Chazal were very specific with their words. They discriminated very deeply when they used the word because they understood the real power of words and how long these words are going to have an effect and the real meaning of these words and what they're really referring to. So when they use an expression like this, Misha Omar V'hoya Oilam. Who is this? Who is this Misha Omar V'hoya Oilam? Why are we calling him in this name right now? Says Reb Tzodok, Ki Yediya Divrei Arizal. The Arizal explains, Al Baruch Shamar V'hoya Oilam, Hu Reisha Delo Isyada, the head that is not known. Misha Omar V'hoya Oilam is somebody that we don't know. We can't refer to that one that said V'hoya Oilam, because the Chazal teach us, Miktzeh Shemayim at Kitzeh Shemayim at the Doirish, V'yat the Doirish ma'alamala ma'alamata ma'alefonim ma'alochar. You can be Doirish from the edge of the earth, of the heavens to the edge of the heavens, meaning everything that manifested, everything that was created, you can darshan. You can try to figure out how was it created and how does it work. But you cannot darshan what's beyond creation, because what's beyond creation is whoever made creation, and we cannot refer to him. We don't know who he is, not in the name, not in the letter, not in any other way. So when we talk about Misha Omar V'hoya Oilam, we're talking about something that's beyond creation, something that never manifested, something that from it came manifestation, from it came reality. So it says, perish. What is this Reisha de lo Yisyada? Reishis imikor hamachshava. The beginning of thought, the thought that is not manifest, the thought that is completely empty of any concept, any idea, any person, any color, any vibration, empty thought, from there comes all manifestation. So the Reishis and Mekor HaMachshava, the source of thought, he is called Misha Omar V'hoya Oilam. And this happens on an individual level, and this happens on a collective level. So we're going to analyze on an individual level so we can bring it into experience. On the individual level, everything that you've ever thought, everything that you've ever experienced is coming from somebody inside of you that is called Misha Omar V'hoya Oilam. Which Oilam? Your Oilam, your perception of life. So your perception of life is built from many, many different pieces, many different experiences, many different words, many different subjects, many different concepts that you've gone through and you've been through and you've thought through, and together you've created yourself an experience. Who is in charge of this experience? Misha Omar V'hoya Oilam. Somebody inside of you who can create these experiences, who can create these thoughts, who can interpret whatever information is coming in from your senses. That thought, that place inside of you that has no color, and it has no feeling, and it has no understanding, but it's there, it's the source of all that, it's the one that makes the feelings, and it's the one that experiences the feelings, and it's the one that creates the words, and it's the one that's talking to you right now, but not in the form of speech, but in the form that he is when he is empty. That's called Misha Omar V'hoya Oilam. That's called Reisha de lo Yisyada. It's the you that you haven't gotten to know. Why haven't you gotten to know him? Because he has been blocked by all the information, all the data that's coming in through your senses. You've been so busy analyzing the data from your senses that you've never noticed that there's somebody there that's observing this data. The makor of that machshava, the makor of that recognition, the makor of that realization. That Reisha de lo Yisyada, that goes beyond any limitations, that goes beyond anything that we experience. And in the collective, that Reisha de lo Yisyada is the emptiness that existed before Brias Oilam, before the world came into existence. That's the one we refer to when we say, Atahu Atshel Nivro Oilam, Va'atu Misha Nivro Oilam, that you haven't changed. The emptiness from where everything came out into being, the ayin from where the yesh came into being, that ayin is still there, and it's giving chayas to the yesh, it's making the yesh exist. What's behind that ayin? Who is the ayin within? We can't know. We can't relate to that. That's beyond us. But from where that ayin created the yesh, from Miktzeh Shemayim at Ktzeh Shemayim, from where existence started happening, we can think about, we can identify, and we can try to organize in a way where it becomes, where it works for us, where we recognize that this was the original nature of what was created. So this Reishis and Mekar Machshava, Shezeh Einei Noide V'Nigle, that it cannot be known. Ki HaMachshava Kvar Yesh La Tfisa Ma B'Moyach V'Nefredes Min Etzem HaMachashiv. So once you have a Machshava, that's not you. The Machshava is your creation. But when you identify yourself as that, you're opening yourself up to all kinds of trouble. This is the world that's called Alma de Peroide, the world of separation. In a world where you think you are the thought, like we discussed, that you are the muscle and you're not the muscle, you're not the one that's perceiving, you're the perception, then you know you're going to be destroyed. Because machshavas don't last. Machshavas have a term, they have a life sentence. And once the life sentence is over, they disappear. So some of our machshavas are very basic and they're very inherent in our perception of life. And some of our machshavas we wear from a very young age all the way to the day of our death. But even then, it'll go off. If it's a machshava, it's going to leave when your brain disintegrates. But the spirit itself, the experiencer, he never disintegrates. So when you identify as him, you have eternal life. You don't have the ups and downs that you have when you identify as any type of thought, whatever it might be. Now, society might force you, through the power they have over your physical reality, the power they have over your body, they might force you to come out from that perception and do different things and go earn a living, for example. Because when you're in that perception, everything is the same. You can't tell the difference whether you're rich or you're poor if you don't allow a thought to manifest. Being rich or being poor is a thought. And you're not the thought, you're the experiencer of thought. However, you need a vessel so that you can continue existence in this life. And this is where the balance becomes complicated. And when people went too far into the vessel, identifying as the vessel, identifying as the thoughts, which is called the Alma de Peroide, which is called the going away from the Yichud, that's when all struggle and strife starts. That's when you have Heter, you have Isser, you have things that are good, you have things that are bad, you have Tameh, you have Torah, because you're in a world of thoughts. Some thoughts are good for you and some thoughts are bad for you. But the original you that is beyond thought, he is beyond all these things. All the words that you can possibly utter don't apply to him. All the concepts and all the ideas disappear. So he says, the beginning of thought, the origin of thought, it cannot be known. By definition, it cannot be known. The one that's thinking, so this is like a type of a connection. The thought of no thought is the missing link between the thinker and the thought. And it's a see-through link. So you don't notice it unless you're paying attention, unless you know what to look for. You don't notice that there's a see-through thought that's behind all thoughts. There's a thought of nothing that can contain all the other thoughts in potential. And you've been using that empty thought and dressing it up in all the thoughts you've ever had. All at kedei kach that you think it's you. And when these thoughts go in a negative direction, you get concerned. You start worrying. When these thoughts go in a positive direction, you become happy. But it's not you. It's not based on your reality. It's based on your thoughts and what they're telling you about reality. But how close can you get to the real reality? How close can you get to yourself? You can get as close as thinking about not thinking, as identifying the thinker without any limitations or conditions, without any words, concepts, or ideas. Just experiencing the experience itself as existence. And therefore, he says, it's the beginning of the matzil. The matzil is the one that's thinking, that's causing a manifestation, that's causing himself to think. And the natzal is the thought itself. The beginning of this thought, this thought has been talking, this potential has been talking inside of you and creating your perception of life ever since you were born. So even though you might never have noticed him, he's been acting in silence and creating your perception of reality, creating everything you know, you think, you fear, you love. Everything he created, he manifested. That's why he's called Misha Omar V'Hoy Olam. It's his words that you're listening to, even right now. So within me, there's the ability for silence. Whether I can find it or not is irrelevant at the moment, but there's that ability, there's that potential. And now when I'm speaking, I'm not silent. So I don't experience the silence. But underneath this speaking, there is a silent one that can speak. And he chooses to speak. But if I think that I am the speech, if I'm going to attach myself to these words and say, this is me, and now if somebody's going to come and argue with me, I'm going to feel threatened, that means that I've lost my connection to my true self. I've gone into Olam HaPirid. I've gone in, I'm these words, I'm not the other words. I'm like this and I'm not like that. And then I become vulnerable. But my existence is not vulnerable. Nobody can take that away from me. And if he can, it won't bother me because I won't be there. So the existence is something that you can hang on to for safety at any point in time, because what's threatening you is your own mind, is your own thoughts. The programming that's in your mind can turn against the person that it's inhabiting. And it's your job to find safety. Before you can organize yourself and figure out what's good and what's bad, first thing you have to do is find safety so you're safe. Where are you safe? You're safe when you don't think. You're safe when you recognize that you exist. And that existence is real. Your thoughts are not real. Your thoughts are just manifestations, creations that you're creating. But when you can cease to think and just be, then nothing can threaten you. Nobody can take that away from you. And therefore, he's saying, Misha Omar v'hoya oilam, it's goli v'yadua for who? Lifnei Misha Omar v'hoya oilam. That level understands Reb Meir. The Chachamim didn't understand Reb Meir. But goli v'yadua lifnei Misha Omar v'hoya oilam, that Reb Meir knows better than the Chachamim. Reb Meir goes deeper than the Chachamim. So if somebody could find the route all the way back to that reality in the collective conscious, then you bring from there ashpa, you bring from there a perception where everything can be good, everything goes back to good, because everything is identified as it really is. Its true nature becomes known to us. Ki b'dvar Hashem shamayim nasu, v'diberu b'koil k'mo shemuva b'zoyer, v'zeu asiya. So the olam asiya means when the koil actually practically comes into this world. Like now when I'm speaking, this is a type of maseh, because my coil is vibrating the actual molecules in the air, and I'm changing life on this planet by people listening to me and creating this reality amongst us, creating this shared consciousness that we have right now, even though we all have our own experience of it. But the shared part of it, that's an asiyah that we're creating right now together. However, the source of that, the Mashenken Amira Belechisha, why we say Misha Omar, lo Misha Diber. Diber is b'maise when you bring it out, but the Amira is belechisha. It's like a soft speaking. That soft speaking is a reishis mekara machshava, the beginning of thought. So when somebody thinks, he's talking belechisha. When somebody speaks, he's bringing it out into asiyah. He's making it into a reality. It's becoming concrete, and then that gets ingrained. That has a hakika into his imagination. And that creates his future reality. That spirit is going to be following him for the rest of eternity. Because once it becomes real, it never leaves. So you can reinterpret it. You can reinterpret reality every moment. That's the right you have in each moment, that no moment prior should be able to bind you. Every moment should have the right to interpret life according to that moment. If moments prior are binding you, it means that this moment is an evet to other moments. He's not really himself. He doesn't get to live. However, these realities are going to stay. The interpretation can change. So you can reinterpret what happened yesterday, but you can't change the events. The events are there. The events are real. So the Mekor HaMachshava is called Amira Belechisha Shemachshava Kvar Begiloi. Once you think, it already came out. It's already a manifestation. At least the guy thinking it already is experiencing it. What's a real lechisha, a real quiet talk? We would call it the unconscious mind. So there's a process that happens before I think. My thought is not the beginning of a process, it's the end of a process. And it'll also continue, right? My thought, it's like a loop. There's a process inside of the mind that manifests into a thought, and that thought now becomes the beginning of a new process that's going to develop the next thought. But the lechisha happens at a level that even the person himself is not conscious that there's a lechisha happening. He doesn't recognize that a thought is being formed. He only gets the end result. He gets the final product. Here's your thought. This is what I'm thinking right now. But prior to that, there's a process. Where does that start? With the Reisha de lo Yisida, with the head that is unknown. It starts from a point that you cannot refer to. It's beyond you. And it's all inherent. As far as time is concerned, it happens simultaneously. So even though in the physical we're used to a process being over time, a spiritual process doesn't happen over time. A spiritual process is simply a process because there's cause and effect that happen continuously. So whenever there's cause and effect, we call it a process, even if the cause and effect happen simultaneously, and that's how a thought is formed. A thought is formed simultaneously as the will, the desire, the ketzer wakes up, and it starts going through the moichin, which is your intellect and your understanding, and the midas, which is your emotions, and it filters through until it becomes a thought. So that's a process, even though that process takes place in less than a split second. You think you're thinking because your desire for thinking and your thinking happen simultaneously. If we were to separate your desire from thinking, your desire for a specific thought from the thought, then you would notice that you're just observing. You really have no shaykhs to the thought. The thought is happening as a result of everything that was recorded previously. It's not you that's thinking. It's thinking within you. It's like we would say if somebody sees food and he starts salivating and his mouth is becoming ready to eat, we wouldn't say he did that. We would say nature did that, right? It happened inside of him. And that's because there was no desire. So as soon as there's no desire, you recognize that it's not you. But when you have desire, the desire fools you to think that it's you that's manifesting, even though all of it is manifested by nature, because we don't know how to run a brain. We never went to study how a brain works and how we can manifest within the brain. So the brain is doing its thing. It's been doing its thing since you've been born. But because your desire is involved and you feel the desire before the manifestation of the thought, so you identify that as yourself. And once you identify that as yourself, you get caught into the thought thinking that the thought is you. I wanted to think, now I'm thinking, so that's me. But no, you're the one observing it. You're the empty space that allows thought to happen within you. And the only way you're really going to see that and experience that so that you can live there and you can have that safety is if you allow that emptiness to stay there long enough so you can observe yourself as empty. So you can notice that if I have the ability to not think, it means that the things that I'm thinking are things like things that I'm doing. They're not me. They're just something that's happening within me. I'm providing energy for that thought. I'm allowing it to manifest within me. But it's not me. And once a person gains that type of control, he can control his mind. It's beyond moyach shalet al halef. It's that the rotzoin should be sholet on the moyach. The moyach shalet al halef is that through your thoughts, you try to control your manifestations. You try to control what you want in the outside world. But a deeper level of control is when your source root, your rotzoin, controls your thoughts so you can stop thinking at will. Because when you can stop thinking at will, none of your thoughts can hurt you. And our thoughts are our biggest enemy. We have no other enemy that's as powerful as our thoughts. Because he's right in the kitchen, he's cooking together with us. So if we don't learn how to control at that level of manifestation, our words and our actions will, even involuntarily, become negative at some point. Because if we can't control our thoughts, then what comes after the thought, which is the speech, which is a result of thought, and the actions, which are the results of thoughts, have mixed in vibrations of all kinds of negativity in them. There's all kinds of anger and disappointment and all kinds of trouble because they reside within our thoughts. And therefore, the only way to become fully pure, to become fully present, to be able to manifest your own nature and not something that was recorded inside of you, is through being able to impose your will upon your thoughts so that you can cease to think. And when you can identify yourself as that Reisha de lo Isida, then what comes after, the thoughts that you do after, can be pure, can be you. And then you can become a force of good in this world. Then you can become a clean source of energy for yourself and for others. So that's what he says now. Through a person taking back all things that have manifested within his life, throughout his childhood, throughout his teenage years, throughout his adult life, to recognize where they were all coming from and who was really in charge. if you bring all that back to the source, it should become so clear to him that there is only one unity, there's only one source from where all this is coming from. You can't even separate us from HaKadosh Baruch Hu like you can separate yourself from your thoughts. Meaning, there's a bigger gap between you and your thoughts than there is between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is much closer to you than your thoughts. Because your thoughts are a creation of you. And your creation is not necessarily accurate because our training has been off. However, his creation is perfectly reflecting his will. So you are like his thought. And your thought is more distant from you than his thoughts, because his thoughts are in accordance with his will, and your thoughts are not in accordance with your will. Your thoughts are disconnected from your will. Other people have taken control of your thoughts through your ears. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's relationship with the real you is closer than your relationship with your own thoughts. So therefore it says that when a person becomes clear of this, when a person can experience this, not just know it intellectually like a Greek, but he can experience it fully with his Ramach Havar Meshisog Gidim, that he knows that this is the reality, there is no other reality. His mind's eye sees this reality so clearly that anything else, any other thoughts are weaker than the vibration that he gets from this thought. Then he gets close to the Yichud, Ardas Hashem Yisborach, She'en Nifnaf Keged Pris HaMachshav Menachashiv, Rach Beyichud, Etzem Ki Yichud Reisha De Machshav Azi. A person goes back to being Dovek and HaKadosh Baruch Hu like the Reisha De Lo Yisidah. Just like the Reisha De Lo Yisidah, before there was any manifestation, everything that existed was him, and everything that's him was in existence, there was no separation. The same thing now. Ato Acha Nivro Olam, Ato Misha Nivro Olam. It's the same being. It's the same source. And the manifestations still are within the source. That's how Reb Meir saw reality, that the manifestations never left the source. So everything that's manifested is part of the source. And therefore Reb Meir made it his job to understand how is it good. Because the relationship with these things that are manifested will now affect his relationship with the source. Once he recognizes that they're so close, that everything manifest is the source, and everything is the way that the source wants it to be, now the Torah comes to start and learning into this reality. How is it good? Because if it's not good, it would hinder Reb Meir's relationship with himself. It would hinder Reb Meir's relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when can a person go into this state of mind? Only when he is already in such a level that he can interpret everything that happens to the good. As long as he cannot do that, going into this level could make him further away from the Yichud, because he's resisting this reality. He doesn't want it the way that it is. So only by reconciling with that reality and accepting it for what it is, and being able to identify the good in every process, can a person live in that type of Yichud. Can a person go back to that height. And in the future, this is going to be very easy, because nobody's going to hurt you and you're not going to hurt yourself. So how difficult it's going to be to translate everything to good. However, in the Galus, this is a very difficult task. And the deeper we are in the Galus, the more difficult it is to take all this ugliness, to take all this pain, all this confusion, and find the good in it. And that was Reb Meir's specialty. Because by being able to do that, if you can convince all the people of the good, then they will forget the bad, and the bad will have no life. The reason evil can perpetuate is because people can't see the good. They're so confused with their thoughts, they're so confused with their interpretations, which they think are real. They're convinced that it's real. Some people are willing to die for their thoughts because they think it's that way. And it's just a thought. So when a person loses touch with reality, loses touch with the original self, then he allows evil to perpetuate. Because wherever evil is already in his thoughts, are going to continue and continue until he wakes up, until he recognizes who is doing this evil. Because mostly in his mind, he has a whole list who he's blaming for that evil. He's sure that it's not his mind doing it. No, this guy did it, and that guy did it, and this is because of this, and this is because of that. His mind, in order to protect itself, in order to protect its relationship with the thoughts which it thinks itself, It's willing to throw everybody else under the bus just so that you don't notice who is the real source of the problem here. And the real source of the problem in each and every adult is the mind. Now, it doesn't put blame on the person, because the person never had the proper information in order to differentiate. He never had the ability to separate himself from the thoughts. In fact, many people spent a lot of time making sure that he takes responsibility for his thoughts, that he feels that they are him, that he feels that if he does this way or he does that way, there will be consequences. So now when he tries to shake that perception, it could be a very difficult work for him. But at the end of the day, our mind is the one that creates our experience, nothing else. Our mind is the one that's interpreting everything that our five senses are bringing in, and it's deciding whether it's good or bad. There's nobody else that's doing that. Just you. It's all you. All the conversations we have in our mind, all the debates, all the arguments are an argument between you and you. And you can bring in 10 more people into the equation. You, and you, and you. And they're all going to argue, but it's still just you. Because nobody else can enter your mind. Even though now you're listening to me, you think I'm in your mind. It's just your ears. They're fooling you. I can't enter your mind. The interpretation that you give to my words are strictly yours. They're yours and yours alone. And for no amount of money can you give it to me. This is your kinyan, lenetzach netzochem. You explained, you interpreted this situation and these words to mean this. So when we upgrade the self, when we recognize certain realizations within the self, we actually change the relationship between the thinker and the thought. And this is where we can start cleaning. This is where we can start being mevarer ben tov l'ra. Because when our mind will not spit out negative, when our mind will not spit out evil, then there will be no evil. Like the Baal Shem Tov says, the tzaddik doesn't see evil in the world, not within himself and not within others. He doesn't have the eyes to see it. His mind cannot have that interpretation. It already eliminated that possibility from the game because it knows the source. It recognizes that each being, each creation is trying to better itself. That's the only thing it knows how to do. If while trying to better itself, it's creating evil, it's hurting others, it's hurting itself, it's simply because of a lack of knowledge. It's simply because of a lack of wisdom. So even the biggest evil, even Hitler was trying to create a better world. Like it or hate it, that's what he was trying to do. However, the information that he had was so grossly misinterpreted that his trying to make the world better was the biggest catastrophe the world could ever go through. But it didn't come from a desire to hurt. It came from a desire to make the world better for him, for his people, for whatever he understood to be right. So we all have elements within us which think they're making things better and they're not. And that's a lack of wisdom. That's a lack of understanding. If we wouldn't have those impediments, if we wouldn't have that Satan inside of us, which is the wrong understandings and the wrong information, then we would only do good. It would really be that simple. Because what's holding us back? Who doesn't want to do good? You'll never find somebody that doesn't want to do good. Everybody wants to do good. So the information is key. Wisdom is key. And the difference between knowledge and wisdom is that knowledge is something you know intellectually, something that is just information, just data written into your mind. And wisdom is something that changes your being. Wisdom is something, a type of knowledge that is internal and instrumental to your experience. So that when you have the wisdom, your experience changes. You can have a richer experience. And the experience is the one that gives you your spiritual energy. So when a person has an elevated experience, he receives more spiritual energy. His body can contain more energy, and then he can do more things. He can go for long times without needing food or drink, because what's animating the body, the ideas, the concepts are of such a quality that they're giving him force, they're giving him koyach, they're giving him a divine juice, so to speak. And the body is always willing and able to do this, but we have to learn how to create this type of energy. In the past, people were experts at this. Like the whole concept of having a Beis Hamikdash, of bringing karbonos, all these are working with the spiritual energy of the individuals as well as of the klal in order to elevate the energy. Because when we will all have enough energy, to stay positive, to identify reality in a positive way, to interpret things the way that they really are, then evil will not manifest. Then we won't have a bad thing to say about life, about people, or about anything else. The reason we complain, the reason we have problems, is because we need things that we don't have. We need fuel, and we expect other people to give it to us. And they don't necessarily have anything to give either. So then the conflict begins. You know, I'm in trouble here. I need help. I need somebody to help me. I need more. I need a good word. I need the money. I need friends. I need whatever I need, because I don't have the energy to carry myself and stay positive on my own. I need somebody to step in and help me so that I don't become my own enemy. But when the day will come when we will all have enough energy from understanding life, from perceiving life, from contemplating life, like the Avos did, like Avram Avinu, who was alone in the world, Echad Hoya Avram, and yet he was able, by contemplating life, by contemplating reality, to gain access to such divine energy, to such a deep source of energy, that he made a difference in the world for 4,000 years. We're still discussing what he did and how he did it and why he did it. That's how deep the energy source that he found was, a Be'er Maim Chaim, that made a difference all the way till today and is going to continue going to eternity. So we all have the same equipment that he had. We all have the same abilities, and we even have his DNA. The difference is his approach, his earnestness, his belief that whoever created this must have created it in a way that it works, must have created it in a way that if we go about it bitmimus, if we are authentic, if we are real with ourselves, then we will recognize the nature within us and we'll be able to live it, and the answer to our problems will be there. So if a person doesn't have that belief, then why would he go through the effort of finding that truth? And that truth is hidden under all the lies that society believes. It's not something that's easily found. So the Amoin Am was never in enough a good shape to be able to understand the truth, and they were never trusted with the truth. Maybe in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, but Misharobi Apritzim, as soon as the Chazal saw that people were not ready, they stopped saying the Shem Havaya in the Beis HaMikdash. Even the Kohen Gadol, when he was Mevorech the Am, he wouldn't say the Shem Havaya because the secrets had to be hidden. The Hamoin wasn't mature enough to understand how to go about these things. And therefore, it's upon the individual to search for the truth within his own heart so that he can reconcile his experience with the words given to us through history, passed on throughout, standing the test of time, as they say, where people gave their lives over and over and over again for this text to arrive within our hands. So this text contains the solution to all our problems, but only if we understand who is we. If you think your thought is you, this text cannot solve your problems. Your text solves the problems to the one who is thinking, not to the thought. So if somebody has a specific concept of who he is and he says, okay, now Torah come solve my problems, the Torah cannot solve his problems. If the person recognizes that he doesn't know himself, something lives inside of me and I don't know who he is and I want to find out, then the Torah has answers. Then the Torah can give you manifestations that will give you access to energy that you don't even know exists yet. And the body is already capable of doing that. It's already, the equipment, not only is it capable, it will only work properly in that setting. And this is the source of our trouble. That as long as we don't know how to do that, we will have problems. We won't be able to experience life the way that it was meant to be experienced. And this is as a gift. Because otherwise, why would we look? So part of the gift of life is that if you do it wrong, it hurts. And that reminds you that you have to start looking for another way. And this is why we're all in pain, because there's a big change that's going to come, hopefully very soon. And in order for us to be able to get on that train and to want to change in that way, we have to recognize that the way we're doing it is wrong. And that recognition usually comes out of pain. That recognition comes when we see that the way we've been doing it is just not working for us. And then a person is ready to give up whatever he thinks is real and start asking, so what is really real? Because what I think is real is causing me pain. So maybe I have to look for something that's really real so the pain can stop. So we should all be zoicha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should teach us His truth and send us the Gula Shleima.